Welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, where we interview remarkable people and share strategies for mastering money and living a meaningful life. With your host, Grant Sabatier, creator of Millennial Money and author of Financial Freedom, a proven path to all the money you will ever need.
All right, hey everyone, welcome to the Financial Freedom Book Tour Diary. Super stoked. Week 1 in the books. We've been on the road. We've been living in the van, hanging out here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, in the Myrtle Beach campground with Cody Berman at Fly2Fi. Man, dude, it's just been a lot of fun traveling with you. I feel like we're starting to now, after 1 week, we're starting to get into a rhythm. We're getting the van set up just like we like it. How are you feeling so far?
I'm feeling awesome, man. It's been a lot of fun, and like you said, we're kind of figuring each other out, figuring the whole van thing out. We've still been doing mods, still been doing upgrades pretty much every day. Tomorrow we're probably going to try to install the solar panel on the roof. Please pray for us, making sure everything goes great. But I mean, man, this tour has just been amazing so far. The feedback from the community, the people we've met, and just the blowback and how much the book has resonated with people and changed their lives. I'd love if you could talk about, as the author, what that means to you.
Yeah, we'll get to that in 1 second. I did want to cover, so Cody and I, we've known each other, know who each other were for quite some time, but we only met last year at FinCon in person. And I knew you were looking to leave your job, looking for something to do. I needed help and wanted help planning this tour. We didn't know each other that well, so we met each other, talked forever at FinCon, ended up talking a ton over the months after FinCon. But dude, what a huge leap to go from we obviously started to know each other, but to jump into a van and literally be on the road for 3 months. And so I got to be honest, I was a little nervous. I was like, okay, I was running through all these scenarios. I was like, what if this doesn't work out? What if we don't get along? What if he's weird? What if he's crazy? But dude, I'm having a blast. I think, it's really fun. We're like laughing a ton. We were like freestyle rapping, on the way. Cody is a great freestyle rapper. Incredible. For those of you who don't know, actually legit good. And I am starting to cut my teeth at it a little bit. You might hear some freestyle rapping, hopefully maybe one of these weeks. So something to stay tuned for. But yeah, gosh, dude, it's been a lot of fun. And I feel like we're settling into a rhythm, not nervous at all. It's just been great to get to know you. And man, it's awesome.
Yeah, and I just appreciate this whole opportunity. I mean, we woke up today, it's a Monday morning, and this feels a whole lot better than my 9-to-5 job did.
Yeah.
I am just so thankful that we're on the road together, having a blast. It's hard work, but it's hard fun too.
Yeah.
So we're having a ton of fun. Like we said, we're in the campground right now in Myrtle Beach, sitting in the van with headsets on, recording a podcast.
Yeah, we haven't killed each other yet. And last night was really funny because we pulled into this Carolina Beach, North Carolina town just outside of Wilmington. And it seems like all of the campgrounds that we've wanted to stay at are closed for the season because this is March 11th. Some of them open March 15th, or they're just closed. And so we've been rolling up on campgrounds that aren't open. And we did this last night at midnight. We almost drove right onto the beach. And so we didn't have anywhere to stay. And so we just picked a parking spot right in front, looking out at the beach, that clearly said we couldn't park there. A cop came by. I was a bit worried that we were going to get kicked out, but man, they didn't care at all.
They did not care at all.
We got to wake up and, check out the sunrise. We ended up randomly meeting this 70-year-old dude who looked like he was about 40, who was coming back from a bike ride in the morning, and he told us a lot about his life story. And man, the van brings people together, and so we've been meeting some awesome people on the road. I'm stoked. 1 week in, I was really tired going into this tour after the book launch. Super tired after going so hard, but I'm energized. It's great to get the fresh air. We're literally probably 100 yards from the ocean right now as we record this. And yeah, man, let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the reflections of the tour.
Yeah. So like I said before, I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like for you, because just the feedback and the reflections and what people have said about the book to me while I'm talking to people while we're at all these different events. I mean, so far we've been to breweries, we've been to bookstores, we've been to libraries, we've been to schools, high schools. These high schoolers are excited about this stuff. So what does it feel like being the author of a book that has touched so many people?
Yeah. extremely humbling. And I think that's it's something you can't even begin to anticipate. And I was doing a little bit of writing this morning, and I was trying to pick some words for what it feels like. And I just feel really, really kind of full. And full in like that good sense where you're just like, you know, after you've had like a really good meal, maybe like a Thanksgiving meal, and you're just like sitting on the couch and you just feel so content. You feel so happy. You feel so like joyful and full of love, as long as you're not, you know, beating up your family too bad. It feels, it's immense. It's indescribable. And the cool thing is, you know, when you're writing a book, and I wrote so much of this alone, and you don't know how it's going to reach people, the things that people are taking away from it, the parts that people are referencing and saying have helped them are, I mean, they're taking away things that are beyond what I even wrote in the book. And that's the cool thing, because they're you know, they're pulling things from the book that I didn't even intend to put in there. And so, yeah, man, incredibly humbling, really grateful. The coolest thing is the feedback's coming from really all walks of life. So people from many different nationalities. I'm getting emails from different countries, seeing people in person, just see them light up and get excited about something, or really a message that at its core, more than anything, it's about hope. It's a really empowering message. And it's the fact that there's so little that we can control in our life, but money truly is a pathway to freedom. It's one of those things that we can use to escape our circumstance, to get new opportunities, to make a better life. And of anything in life, it has that power and potential. And people are making some massive, massive changes already in their life. I mean, the book's been out just a little over a month, and people are like quitting their jobs. You know, one person reached out to me today on Instagram, and he's like, I used your exact strategy to hack my 9-to-5. He said he never would have even imagined asking for work remote opportunities because no one in his company has it. And he went, and now he has the opportunity to work remotely 3 days a week simply from asking. And so, I mean, that can hopefully change, you know, this guy's life. And so, a lot of love. I put a lot of love into the book, and I'm feeling incredible amounts of love. And I just feel very grateful that I can share that with people, and that I can, you know, help people in that way, because that's really at the core why I did this. I didn't do this for myself. I did this to help other people live lives that they love. And so the fact that the response has been so powerful, yeah, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, so I think a story worth sharing that you've kind of shared a lot in the tour that I think the listeners will like hearing is about the 13-year-old kid from California that hit you up. I just think that's hilarious.
Yeah, so a 13-year-old kid from outside San Jose reached out to me, and literally just super short email, clearly from his phone. And he's like, hey, your book was so epic. I loved it. I read through it super quickly, you know, but I'm really upset. And that was it. That was the end of the email. And I wrote back, I was like, oh, that's like, first off, this kid should get a copywriting. That's like the best cliffhanger ever. So I wrote back immediately on my phone, and I was like, hey, thanks for letting me know, but what were you upset about? And he's like, well, I checked, and I'm 13, and I have to wait until I'm 14 and a half to get my worker's permit here in California. How can I make any money? So I was like, I wrote back, and I was like, well, what can you do around your neighborhood? You know, are there odd jobs and stuff? And he wrote back, my sister and I have already maxed out the opportunities in my neighborhood. And I was like, okay. And I wrote back, I was like, okay, first off, this is awesome. Congratulations, man. Here are 6 other books that you should read and prepare yourself. Enjoy this last year and a half before you start working, because you're going to be hustling real hard, it sounds like. So just learn all you can. You have plenty of time. You're so far ahead. And it's not the first email that I've gotten from a 13-year-old. And that's the coolest thing ever, because this kid, man, he's just like, man, so far ahead. So cool.
That's awesome. And so something you just mentioned there that I really want to dive into is the idea of hustling too hard. And I think we've met a lot of people just talking on this trip that maybe are hustling too hard. They're chasing that fine number. They're chasing this audacious goal, this $1 million, this $5 million that they want to hit. And I mean, I've kind of come to this realization where I don't need all the money in the world. I want to live a life that I love. I want to just have enough money to be happy every day, spend time with the family members and friends that I love, do the things that I love. And you've been talking about that a lot on this trip. It's kind of the next thing after money, because money isn't that difficult, but designing a life that you truly love and that you truly aspire to live, that's the really hard part. So could you just talk a little bit about like what that means and how you can get
well, there's a plane flying over.
That's loud.
Hopefully, yeah, it's super loud. But,
loud.
We could leave the plane in, honestly. It's like, obviously we're in some flight path. It's pretty late though. I think we're recording this. No, it's not even 10. So someone's flying into, I think Myrtle Beach has an airport.
Yeah, there's a little airport. Yeah. All right, sorry. I'm crazy about my podcast, but we're just in the van now, so we're just chilling. So yeah, great. I mean, could you just talk about how you can kind of get past the money? Because it is easy. You have a goal, and that's all you think about. It's all you think about until you hit that number. But then maybe you hit that number, and you're like, what's my purpose? Why did I even do this in the first place? So how do you find your meaning, and how do you find your why?
There's a lot. There's a lot of those questions, man. The first thing is the first thing is like, and I've talked about this before. The most important question isn't how much money do you need for the rest of your life. It's what kind of life do you want to live, and then how much money do you need to live that life. And that what kind of life do you want to live probably will change as you change and as you grow and as you get older. And one of the things that it's fascinating now, like traveling with you, because talking about your career and your job, and Cody saved up over $30,000 from his full-time job in 7 months before he left, and that's your expenses are obviously very low, and you're at a point in your life where you've saved up enough money, you're able to make enough money to cover your living expenses, and ultimately you have 100% control over your time. And today I heard something from you that was incredibly genuine. Like you said, I am super happy with my life, and that's all any of us can ask. And what that means obviously can be very different for someone who's 23, or I'm 34. But for me, I'm also incredibly happy. And the fact is, like, the situation and the circumstance that makes you happy, and the life that you're living that makes you happy, that can and should change and will change as you grow. And the thing is, we're always told that we need millions of dollars, or we need to, get 10 years of experience and work and put in the time and grind and all these things. But if you're happy doing that, or at least if you're mindful of the huge trade-off that you're making, and that for me was, I basically gave up about 5 years of my life in a lot of ways in order to become financially independent. And I hope that I made a trade-off that was 5 years of time for like 50 years of freedom. Hopefully I lived that long. But it's really important. And the better that you get to know yourself, the more work that you do on figuring out who you truly are, as opposed to just always chasing that next thing. And that's clearly work that you did. And that's work that I worked hard to do as well. We all, always say money is infinite. You can always go out and make it. Tomorrow you could go back and get a corporate banking job. Tomorrow, if I wanted to, I could go back and launch another agency or do a bunch of different things, but we're not going to get back this time. And so, spending your time in a way that's incredibly fulfilling is first and foremost the goal, and realizing what you're trading. And then the last piece is, like, we do live in a world where most of us are incredibly tired. And it's because not only are we working an insane amount, we also feel like we have to do everything for ourselves. And we live in this really hyper individual age where We're kind of like shouldering the burden of so many things as opposed to relying on those people around us, whether it's our friends or our family or, other people that we love to help us on our own journey. And the only reason I say this is very hard to do everything for yourself, very hard to always try to keep getting better. And we live in such a keep getting better, keep improving world that puts a lot of pressure on all of us. And we always feel like we need to be working because there's someone else. It's like the Gary Vee message where it's like, it's like when your competition is sleeping, that's when you should be working, and that doesn't really work. Obviously, where a lot of us are burned out. And so the real question always goes back to what kind of balance can you find? Balance is easier said than done. I struggle immensely with balance. And the way I think that you can cultivate balance is to completely put yourself in a new situation. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this tour, in addition to meeting readers and spreading the message, I'm at a point in my life now where pre-kid, turning 35 this year, I wanted to throw myself into an unexpected, unfamiliar situation to even myself, change things up a bit. And there's a lot I know in that as well. But you don't have to hustle all the time. You don't have to do everything yourself. You don't have to always get better. You don't have to save $1 million to have more time and space and freedom in your life. In a lot of cases, making a lot of money and more time are often at odds. And really what the book is about is bringing those two things together more in harmony. But still at the same time, time is more valuable. You can always go out and make more money. I can go out and make more money. What we can't do is, probably in a couple of years go out in a camper like this and, go to 41 cities in 3 months and meet all these awesome people.
Yeah. I just think it's so hard to detach yourself sometimes and take a step back. We just drove through the Myrtle Beach Strip. I think there was literally every chain in America there. And everything, there was so many billboards saying, you're not enough, you deserve this bigger home, you deserve this fun, you deserve this hotel. And you're just constantly fed it. That's what the media tells you. They always tell you you're not good enough, you need to get better. Or maybe you are almost quite enough and you can save up for that weekend trip. You can keep living paycheck to paycheck and just splurging in the weekends, hoping that the weekend comes, just praying for that Friday so you can blow the paycheck. And it's kind of sad. It's just this feedback loop and just keeps going and going and going. And it's really hard to kind of pull yourself back. Maybe if you read a book like Financial Freedom, maybe if you listen to this podcast, maybe if you surround yourself with a community of people of the same like minds. But I just think it's so tough to get out of that loop. And I have friends, I try to tell them this message and they just don't listen. They don't quite understand that I'm buying my freedom. I'm not sacrificing the ability to earn more money by leaving my job. I'm trying to build and design a life that I love. And it's definitely a distinction that a lot of people don't quite understand.
Yeah. And I think it's not that they don't understand it. It's that they are afraid of it, I think, in a lot of cases. You can't fault someone for working hard and going out hard on the weekends because life is kind of like a pendulum. So if you're really pent up and you're like, hate your job and you're stressed out, the number one thing, and I'll connect this in a second, the number one thing we say when we work really hard during the week and then we go out hard on the weekends or we buy something or, retail therapy is one phrase, 3 words. I deserve it. And there's a lot in that phrase. I deserve it. We were driving today in the middle of North Carolina and, there's all these housing projects, just developments and different communities and live here. And one of the advertisements was like, go ahead, you deserve it, for these houses. And there's a lot in that because saying that I deserve it, obviously the first word there is I. And so it basically insinuates that there's some sort of lack in your life that needs to be filled. And the crazy thing is that's somewhat of a cycle. And if you're always getting in this cycle where the pendulum swings really hard one way, then you're going to try to swing it the other way. And whether that's manifests itself in addictions or consumption or, going out hard or whatever it is, that tension that you feel and that stress that you feel in your full-time job, that stuckness, that is going to manifest itself in so many different ways, even health problems, even stress, even it's not like you can keep repressing that stuckness and that forever without a whole lot of probably consequences. And so I'm not hating on Myrtle Beach at all. I mean, I'm sure it's a really fun place, to go out and have fun on the weekends. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that or shouldn't do something else. The key thing, and you talked about this a little bit with some of the people Cody, is often people don't realize or know that there's another way, and that there's another way to live, and that there's another way to think, and that there's another option for them. And because the default is, that one way. And increasingly they're seeing models, but like even your friends, you mentioned some of them, they see the way that you are living, and even you, their friend, as a model are not enough. And so the question is, why is that the case? And the reason why is like, you're one person, I'm one person. And then there's like, society, and then there's everyone else. And it's always easier in life to follow what everyone else is doing. The harder, but arguably the more exciting thing, even if you're not going to do it forever, is to try something different.
Yeah, I do think it's really tough, and it's so easy to follow the pack, like you said. No one wants to take the risk. Like the guy that reached out to you, no one in his company was doing the remote work, and he reaches out, and all of a sudden he has 3 days remote work.
3 days. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
So crazy. Sends me this in an Instagram message.
It's insane. Or like leveraging a $50,000 raise. I know you said one of your readers has done that before.
More than that. I had one reader who got an $80,000 raise.
Wow.
$80,000. And here's a kid who had like over $40,000 in student loan debt. And so he was really, really stressed out about his student loan debt, but he was in a sales position at his company. But we don't have to get into his story. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing is literally one or two questions or one or two strategies can completely change your life. And we often don't ask for those things or advocate for those things. And I'm glad that's coming through with the book. Like, hey, your boss's job in a lot of cases is to try to get the most out of you for the least amount of money. And I talk a lot about how most companies are just legal pyramid schemes. And capitalism is built on efficiency. It's built on getting the most labor for the lowest price. And so, like, you're not going to change the system. So how can you operate and get the most out of the system? And it's by getting data on what you should be paid based on your skills and experience, which has never been easier to get. Spending more than just like an hour thinking about how much you should be getting paid. We spend absolutely hardly any time in this country on kind of career development, in the sense that, we don't research what we should be getting paid or what else we could be doing. And the other thing is, becoming your own advocate and realizing that as an employee, you have so much more leverage than you realize. And that's the cool thing, because it's, in often cases, the worst thing that can happen is someone can say no. And there are so many companies out there. There's so many jobs. There are so many opportunities. One thing that I've been thinking a lot about, this is obviously all love. This is like people coming up with the tour and, really excited, telling me their success stories, really hopeful, really pumped. And then there's people that I've been meeting, who have been at the events, others, I gave a talk at this wine bar yesterday in Holly Spring, North Carolina. And there was a guy there who just happened to be at the wine bar and heard the talk that I gave. And then, I sat down and, he came up to me and, said, really enjoyed the talk, like what I was saying, wanted to get a book. So I gave him a book. And then an hour later, I sat down next to him and I was just like, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. And he was saying how for the past, 8 years, he's worked as a manager at a rent-a-center and he's worked in retail, and he was not able to finish his college degree after, working on it for about 6 years, and he had debt from that. And he really wants to get into HR, but and sort of employee development, but because he doesn't have a college degree, and because he's been working for 8 years at Rent-A-Center, which he has to commute an hour each way each day, he feels there's a stigma around retail, and that's limiting the fact that he doesn't have a college degree. It's limiting any type of mobility that he can have, and that's a situation that I have never thought about, and I had obviously never had to deal with. And that is really opened my eyes to, and that's one of the reasons I want to go on the road, just how limited even my perspective is around where people are in their lives. And that's, we've been on the road a week, and that's just one example of 3 like that, where, someone else was talking about, just how much sort of financial literacy, even though it's in a lot of schools, how much it's failing. And that kids, it's very, very hard to reach kids with a message like this, even in schools. And, I was talking about, with a lot of single parents, because they're so busy working, the children don't get access to just other narratives and other ways to live. And then the last thing, I was talking with one woman who she teaches a class with the University of Phoenix, and one of her students, who he's the first kid in his family to go to college, and he's going to the University of Phoenix online, and had this in-person component, and he was talking about how hard it's been because all of his family makes fun of him for going to school. And they say, hey, you think you're better than us, huh? And, they always rib him. And so not only here's a person who is working hard and going to college and saving money and taking, probably taking out loans to go to school, they have the added pressure of people around them who are their family and friends pulling them down or pushing against them. And they're, that's just, even those 2 stories, you realize that financial freedom, I hope, is available to everyone in some form, but I knew that it was much harder for some people than others, but I didn't have, and still don't believe that I have, a full understanding of the myriad limitations and roadblocks and additional challenges that so many people in this country have to go through in order to just get to the starting line. And I'm even more committed, and I realize there's a gap in, the book, obviously, there's strategies in there that could work for anyone, but I was at a loss with this gentleman who works at the Rent-A-Center around how to advise and the best next step for him. And, I defaulted to, build a new skill set where you don't need a degree. And obviously I always kind of fall back on learning Google AdWords, but, he lives in a community and where that barrier to entry is high. And so I'm even like more inspired and committed to figure out and to help make financial freedom available to everyone. And I see clearly the book, there's things in there that can benefit everyone, but there's a lot that needs to happen to get people who are really stuck in their life, whether that's sort of how they feel about themselves or how their family's making them feel, or the choices that they've made up to this point, or certain social stigmas, or just the fact that the way people speak in certain socioeconomic, at certain socioeconomic levels, or where they live in the country, impacts how they're perceived by potential employers and bosses. And physical limitation, how someone speaks impacts how much money they can make. And so there's still so much work to be done, both at kind of the sort of culture and society level, as well as very hard to change sort of those types of perceptions. And so while trying to do that, also helping people get to the starting line, because like I said, everyone deserves this. And I mean, it's only been a week and my eyes are already so open to where, it's amazing getting all the love and, feedback and warmth, and just, I'm so grateful and humbled by it. I'm also even more driven and concerned to hear these stories and realize there's so much more work to be done.
And Grant, thank you for all of that and talking about, because I've really kind of taken the blinders off as I've listened to people's stories. And as a white male in America, I know that I have some of these privileges. I've never really experienced sexism or racism or any of these other socioeconomic, sometimes debilitating. It doesn't allow you to get a job. It's kind of scary. And these people, like you said, they're starting back. They're behind the even starting line. And it's just trying to figure out, how do we get them where they can reach financial freedom. But I think the beauty of it is that joining communities like this.
The plane likes you, bro.
I know the plane really likes me.
The plane's always flying over.
Yeah, 5 to 5, baby. But joining a community like this, just finding your like-minded people. I think there are little steps, even if you are starting behind the starting line, at least getting up to the starting line and taking some of these tactics and some of these things that we're talking about to heart. There are ways where even if you are limited by Google AdWords, maybe you're going to have to do a little bit more work if you don't have access to computer, if you don't have access to technology. I think a statistic you talked about the other day was that if you make $32,000, you're in the top 1% of income earners in the world. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's just absolutely astonishing. So we're talking about just the cities that we've met in America right now. So these are people who have the money to go to an event. They have the gas or the money to catch the bus. And then there's people in other countries who are making, if you're making $32,000, you're in the top 1%. And just the people that Grant and I have met so far on this trip is blowing our minds, the limitations that we didn't see.
Yeah. And we're still two white guys sitting, chatting in a van about this. And as much as we want to learn and understand and listen to people who look and talk and come from different backgrounds than us, there's always going to be a gap in our knowledge and understanding. And that's why the community element is even more important, because I'm just one person, you're just one person. I wrote a book and shared what I did and what I learned and the mistakes I made. But I am one person, and I hope that the book inspires others to help others, because there are gaps, and I'm fully committed to continuing to figure out and listen and evolve the methodology. Financial freedom to me, while yes, it's a book and it's a hardcover and you can hold it in your hands or you can listen to it You can read it on, your Kindle or your phone. To me, it's like a living philosophy. It's something that's so much bigger and greater than I am. And that's even more exciting because it doesn't die or end with the book. The book doesn't stop the evolution. And so I'm really excited about, the Facebook community that we've been building, just the diversity of people in that group from different countries, from different economic classes, from, different races, different genders, just all over the country. And so it's that diversity of perspective that I think, will help, as well as it's we're all in this together. And that's one of those things as well, that as much as, I said this in the talk, 2 days ago in Raleigh, that the more that I travel around the world, the more readers that I meet and talk to and emails I get, the more I realize how similar we all are. Even when we look different and act different and feel different, we all are one. We're all humans. We're all, I mentioned how, often when you have a feeling, you feel really alone, but there's probably someone like in your neighborhood or definitely in your city that's feeling that exact same feeling that you're feeling at that very moment. And to me, the fact that we are all one, that we're all a lot similar, is exciting because when you choose to live differently and you find other people who are choosing to live differently, that's incredibly powerful because we're not going to take down the system. We're going to chip away at it. And, that happens politically in a lot of ways. But what we can do much faster is help each other find ways to live life on our own terms, whether you call those hacks, whether you call those strategies, whatever that may be. And that's the coolest thing of all, because I feel like all financial freedom is like, hey, instead of making that right turn and that status quo turn that everyone else does, let's all make this left turn together and we'll explore the forest together and we'll see where it goes. We really have nothing to lose in doing that. And there's a richness in that. There's an element of truly living in that. And that's really at its core what it's about. And being on the road now for a week, I can just see and feel so much life in people. And very hard to get that from an email or from a Twitter message or an Instagram message. And so above all else, that's just the coolest thing, just to see people living their lives and doing fun stuff and, supporting their families and their friends. And it's a lot of love, a lot of life on this tour so far. And definitely. Gosh, can't believe it's only been a week. It feels like we've been on the road for months. But that's the greatest thing of all, right?
Yeah, I think it's super cool how we kind of set out as teachers or guides, and people are going to spread this message and quickly are becoming students of how we can get better and how we can impact more lives, how we can break down barriers and impediments and obstacles for people. I just think it's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I feel like explorer is the wrong word. I feel like there was like, especially in this financial independence community, there's like this big, vast sort of Amazonian jungle or like this big forest. And there's more and more people now getting in that forest and exploring. And all I feel like I'm someone who's just gotten kind of to the edge, to the other side of that forest. And I've seen kind of what it's like and what life is like. And financial freedom was like the report back. Like, hey, here's literally a path through the forest and here's another way to live. And so I don't view myself as like, I don't even view myself as a teacher. I don't view myself in that way at all. I view myself more as like a hey, I walked down this path and I saw some things that I think you should see and you should think about. And whether you do that is up to you. This is just what I think is important in life. And man, it's just cool some other people are taking that path too. And they're seeing stuff. They're seeing stuff that I didn't even see. And then they're telling me about it. And so the path just gets richer and richer and more colorful. And that's the coolest thing of all, because as more people travel the path, I'm going to keep learning. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever view myself as a teacher. That's not how I viewed the book at all. It was just kind of like a guide to how I decided to live. And I hoped that it helped others. And the fact that it is in some way doing that is all that I could ask for.
It's like the guy in 300, there's a passage through the mountains.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels that way. It really does feel that way, man. Like, I was really alone on this journey for like 2.5 years. And that's the cool thing, because some people have never heard of this at all, or financial independence or any of this. They're stumbling on it, and it's just like, but my favorite review, this is my favorite review of all the reviews that I've gotten, was like, this book is great. It has so much information, so much great information, almost too much. And I was like, cool. It's almost, and that's that I really got excited about that review, because I feel like I tried to put as much of like, look at this, think about that, as I could. There's some people, there's one person who reached out to me and they're like, I've read the book 4 times. And I had to read the book 4 times. I was like, gosh, wow. I was like, have I read the book 4 times? No. And that's the coolest thing, because I really wanted it to be something that you could reread maybe once a year. And as you change, the whole premise of the book is built around the fact that, we talked about this, the finance industry sells a level of precision that's unrealistic. And okay, so if the finance industry tells you need $5 million and this and this and this and this and this, the reality is we're always growing, we're always changing what we want. We should be changing our desires as we experience more life. We should be changing, we should be growing, we should be adapting in some way. And so as that happens, maybe the type of life that you want to live, or the trade-off that you want to make, or where you want to live, or what job you want, maybe you're willing to make trade-offs, or you were last year, that you're no longer willing to make this year because, you lost a friend and maybe they passed away and you're no longer willing to make the same trade-offs for money. Or maybe you got really amped up in the past year because you had a vision of a dream life or a type of life that you wanted. And so now you're willing to, hustle in a different way. So we're always changing, we're always growing. And just, the book's meant to be a check-in with yourself, because the first time you walk that path, you're going to see things for the first time and it might be really scary. And then the next time you walk it, it's going to seem a little bit more familiar, and you might notice something that you didn't notice before. You're like, it's like walking through the rainforest, and you're like, or walking on the same path, and all of a sudden you realize, like, this tree that you never saw before that was so beautiful. And so it's meant to be that. It is a path. It's not just like, a ladder or something. It's meant to, you're meant to wander, you're meant to explore, you're meant to test things, you're meant to make mistakes, because you can always come back to that path. And so that's the coolest thing at all, when people are like taking away different things than I expected. Mm-hmm. It's so, and just the certain like elements that resonate with people, because I wanted them all to resonate. But it's like, some people it's like the hacking of the 9 to 5. Some people it's like the more spiritual component, and some people like it's the only budget you'll ever need. And that's the coolest thing at all, because it's like people are implementing it in their own lives in their own way. And that's really what I wanted.
Well, I think we should probably round this thing out soon, and I really hope that a lot of people got value out of what we've been talking about today, this Financial Freedom Road Trip Book Tour. We're going to be doing these every week, hopefully, and just kind of keep it up.
We're totally going to do these every week, man.
And Grant, I'm actually curious. I don't think we've talked about this. I want you to tell me what your favorite, whether it's a moment in time, whether it was a place, whether it was an event, a conversation, what has been like that one memorable moment from the tour so far, week one?
Week one, most memorable moment. Wow, there's been so many. You know, we did New York, we did Philly, we did Catoctin High School, 150 students, high school students. We did Frederick, Maryland. We did, DC. We did Richmond. We did 3 events in Raleigh. Here we are, gospel, like 8 or 9 events in over the past week. The one moment that really stuck out to me was we were in Chestnut Hills, Pennsylvania, which is outside of Philly, and it was the first event where I had to give a talk, or and I planned to chat for about 15 minutes, just some recap of the book. Ended up talking, for probably an hour and 20 minutes, maybe a little longer. Not because I was just rambling, not because I was just talking, but because I felt very open, and there were all these things that I've been thinking about after writing the book. And that's important to note, that I finished the book over a year ago. And so, we talked about, we always grow, we always change, we always evolve. I too am growing and changing and evolving. I'm still 34. I'm, a person. I'm a human. And so I wanted to share what I've been thinking about in the years since writing the book, since reflecting on the book. And, I didn't want to just talk and not have people not listen. But the reason I went instead of 20 minutes for over an hour was because, and this is what blew me away, for the first time, I could see in everyone's eyes that was in that room. They opened up. Like I could feel like my soul connecting with theirs in a way that I haven't felt in life before. In everyone in that room, there wasn't a single person. It was maybe 25 people who I felt wasn't fully present, fully there. There was no one that was finish, stop, do this. And so I wanted to keep giving because they were so open. And that was the coolest thing. It's like I could look in their eyes and see them, and they could see me. And that's super, super powerful. And I haven't had that feeling in my life before. And so I've had it since on this tour already, since that meeting in Philadelphia, not to that extent, but even when I'm chatting at a few of these other meetups, I can see the people that are really really open. I can see the it's like I can see their soul, which is crazy and unexpected, and
that's awesome, man. Give me the chills just talking about it.
Yeah. So man, 1 week we did it. 8 or 9 events, bunch of cities. Here we are, South Carolina. Super excited. The weather is warm.
Finally.
We're in shorts and continuing on this journey, man. It's just been great so far. And we'll see everyone next week.
Thanks for listening to the Financial Freedom Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. To learn more, get show notes, and dive deeper, visit financialfreedombook.com.